We are recording on Monday, July 28th, 2025 at 12:16 p.m. Eastern Time with Mr. Michael Vecchione, who's been on here a zillion times before. You guys can go to the description and find the links to his books, most recent of which are the Fallen Angel series. You can go back and find the other ones, Crooked Brooklyn, or you helped with Behind the Murder Curtain with Bruce Sackman. It's actually how I got to know you. But you were just talking about going down and kind of going to a place and there was, some fans of your book, and it's just like it's the coolest thing. And I obviously don't have any books, but no, I will say that like the hands down coolest thing about the pot, other than when you make money, that's just the coolest thing. But second to making money is when somebody who's like not friends or family, it's when somebody who owes you like no niceties or manners tells you they really like your work. That's it's
Yeah,
one of
it's
the coolest feelings where you're like, because mom will always love it. Your brothers will always like, even if they don't, your friends will always be like, good job.
exactly.
When people you don't know are just like, when random strangers who could say the meanest things in the world, don't often do, when they say like, hey, dude, I love this or I love that, it really is, it's because the creativity that comes out, I mean, that's about as close to a piece as your, not to get all poetic, but that's about as close as a piece to your soul as you can get. Like that's you. It's not like you delivered pizza and somebody went, "Thanks, man. I love your work." You're like, "Yeah, I mean, anybody could have delivered this." When it's something you did, that's your own unique kind of fingerprint into this universe. It's an extremely cool feeling. So
It
I'll just
was
shut
it.
up and you continue that. Tell me
No,
what you
it's
were telling me
okay.
beforehand.
It was great. So let me just tell you how it happened. A couple of years ago, I Lenore has a very good friend who lives in South Carolina, and she she told me about this movable feast thing. Must have been 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and it was when I was doing. I think it might have been book one of Fallen Angel. And when I told her I had a new book coming out, and she said, "Well, what's it about?" And I gave her, kind of a thumbnail sketch, and her reaction was, "Oh, the devil? Oh no, people down here will never want to listen to that. You'll never want to be able to come down. It's sorry, that kind of thing." I said, "Okay, I just wanted you to know that's what I'm doing." So a few years pass, right? And things, I don't know what happened, but things have kind of changed, I guess, in her mind. And she told me that the woman who runs this is a publisher herself. She had her own publishing company who runs this movable feast, and they've got big authors who come down and do the speech and do the talk, and there's a lunch and it's cool. So I got a message from her one day, Lenore's friend, and said, you know we still want you to come down. We want you to come down. And it was, she said still, but I knew that there was something, something had changed. Whatever it was, I don't know what it was, but it did. Coincidentally with that, I got a message. I'm a member of this Hilton Grand Vacations Club. It's a timeshare kind of thing. And they gave me a call at the beginning of the year and they said, listen, they're always trying to sell you more points and get you to buy more things. So they said, we have a 4-day weekend for you. You can pick several different places. And one of the places was Myrtle Beach. So I said, I'll take Myrtle Beach. I got on the phone, called Lenore's friend. She told the woman who runs this, and they said, absolutely have them come down. So it kind of was a real kind of thing that worked out very well. So we went down. We had 4 nice days in Myrtle Beach is a beautiful place, and we were right on the beach in terms of the hotel we were in. And Lenore and I had a great time. And then I did this event, and it was a luncheon. 11 o'clock, you had to be there. They all assembled. All of these nice. I thought going to be all these Southern women. Well, there are a lot of people in South Carolina who are transplants. They're not necessarily born and raised
Yeah.
there. And but they all came in, sat down. It must have been maybe 30, 35. They were at these tables and I did my thing. And I have to tell you, Tom, it was the reaction afterwards was fantastic. And they had a bookstore as part of this. The bookstore brought books. And I was able to do a signing as well. I signed all these, the women who were there bought the books, came over and I signed them and we chatted and they it was really a terrific day. And I learned a couple of things about the transplants. A couple of them said, where in Brooklyn is this set? And I said, I told them where, and they said, well, it's where I was born in Brooklyn. I was raised in Brooklyn. This guy came over to me. There were two men in the place, Lenore's friend's husband and another guy who was there with his wife. And he came over and he said, I got to tell you, I was born and raised in Bensonhurst, which is a section of
Hmm.
Brooklyn, and so happy that I'm glad to be here, and I'm waiting and anxious to hear what you have to say. So it turned out to be a really good day. And since then, I've gotten messages from Lenore's friend as well as the woman who runs the publishing company that they want me back. I mean, that's how much of a quote unquote hit I was that day. And and she also said to Lenore's friend to tell him that she would like to publish, something of mine. And as you know, I'm in the midst of writing Jimmy Dennety's book, The Hard Guys Cry book, and I'm about a little past the halfway through, or maybe three-quarters of the way through it. I don't have a publisher. You know the whole story I told you
Hmm.
about the publisher told me that they couldn't afford to buy the book, etc. So I decided to write it anyway, and then I have, and I'm going to give her a call. And I think maybe I have found a publisher for the book. And if I do, it'll be another reward for showing up in Myrtle Beach and doing the talk. So
It's for everybody that doesn't know, the book is about your real world experiences in the criminal and the justice system, or I guess criminal justice system, and
yeah,
tying it into the common thread being the devil or evil forces. And it is something I've always liked. I mean, there's such stupid movies, but I'll always have a soft spot for like Transformers because
yeah,
like the second one, it's like because they tie in real world stuff, and then obviously it's the fiction, but it's like, the Apollo program. It's like that was actually covered because they found an alien ship had impacted and they had to go retrieve this stuff. And it's like, and then that's why we stopped going is because it's just stuff like there's a certain sense of, I don't know, it helps with the suspension of disbelief when there's like the movie, I still haven't seen it, but I think it's from the 90s, Stargate, where they find like an alien warp portal and they keep it under Cheyenne Mountain where NORAD's headquartered. And it's like, well, that's the reason why that's there. And there is something exceptionally more fun when it's not, at least for me, when it's not outright fiction. Like I get the allure of Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. Like I get it. It's dragons and it's fun. And then there's also the obvious most I like the most is nonfiction. But there is something, I don't know, like there is something very, I don't know, it's like thrilling, or it just scratches the right part of your brain when it's real world events with just like a sheening, like a primer
exactly.
cover of fiction. Now actually your book might actually not be a good case of that, because I do firmly believe that the devil inhabits people and does evil things, so that might not even be fiction. But I was gonna say that is kind of one. I was just because I was watching a clip of Transformers the other day, and it made me think of your book. And I was like, I don't know what it is about it. I don't know what the psychology of that is about when it's real world events with just a little bit of a, I don't know, a reflective surface of
Yeah.
fiction that makes it fun.
Well, it clearly has been very good. I mean, in terms of a hit, as far as people loving the books, they really do. And I've got to tell you, I recently have taken on a promoter who has helped me. And what she does is she promotes the books to book clubs and gets them interested. And the book club, of course, which helps sales and as well as reviews. And the first book club that she got involved with, and after the whatever the event was, I don't know if they do it in person or they do it over Zoom in terms of discussion. Um, what they do is they write reviews for Goodreads, which is an online kind of website where you can go to get ideas as to what you want to read. And it's when I read a book, particularly through my Kindle, at the end of it, I always get a pop up, and it's from Goodreads, and it
Hmm.
says, "What's the review? What do you think of the
Yeah,
book?" That kind of thing. Tom, I got to tell you, I got 50 reviews on
it's
Goodreads.
awesome.
for book three, and they were fantastic. They were really fantastic. It was wonderful. It really was. And and she's now expanding to go to other book clubs. So the idea, let me remind
I was gonna
your
say that's
viewers and
you
listeners.
got 50. That's impressive. Let me pull it up right now. Okay, so the podcast has been going for almost 6 years. This is episode 1799. I've gotten 290 reviews in 6 years and 1800 episodes. That's no, I
Yeah,
that's actually that's I tip my hat. That's good.
thank you, thank you. And so she's going to continue with this, and other book clubs. But I want to just remind you, going back to what you originally said about fiction and real life, and real world stuff. I had this idea about doing this book when I think I mentioned it a long time ago when we first started talking about this, because the publishers that I was dealing with and my book agents told me that I couldn't sell short stories. I have a lot of stories, as you well know. I've told a lot of them on the air with you. And my idea was, when Jerry Schmetterer passed away, was to write a book of short stories, true crime short stories. And they told me that, that can't sell. True crime lovers like to have long form, that kind of thing. I said, okay. And one guy gave me a tip, and he said, Mike, find a way to tie all those little stories together, and then you got something, which is what I did. And I thought back to, and this is the essence of, and the beginning of the idea of the devil, is I did a case when I first came back to the DA's office. I was in the DA's office when I first left law school, and I spent 8 years there, and then left and went to the police department as an attorney for a couple of years, and then into my own practice. And I went back in '92 to the DA's office, and there was a case that was very important to the DA at that point. Um, it was a young a girl had been killed on the Williamsburg Bridge, and I know
Mhm.
you know us. We've talked about it a
Yeah,
lot.
it's the most brutal. It's probably the most brutal fucking story you've ever told, where a young woman
Yeah,
was raped, killed, and lit on fire.
brutal. I mean, brutal,
Yeah.
really brutal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in my summation, aside from how I wanted to end it, which was, this is all we have left of what this is what this guy did. All we have left of her was her bra clasp and a shoe, one shoe. And I put it on the jury rail right in front of them, so it would really be right in their face, the jury. And I said, the horror of this whole story is such that it's as if the devil himself had come to Brooklyn and committed this crime. That's how horrific it was. I never forgot that. I never forgot that. And I thought that, when my agents said find a way to tie this stuff together, I said, well, I can do it if I can do a series of novels with these stories. Well, then that will work. And I sent a book proposal to the ultimate publisher, the publisher who has been doing now three, and I'm doing four soon. I'll be starting, book four. She loved it, and she's the one who came up with the idea that, I want you to do three books as opposed to one book. So I think that what strikes people is just what you said. A lot of people, they love fiction. I mean, you go to the movies and you want to
Yeah.
get lost. You
Adventure.
want to be entertained. And people who pick up crime novels love the stories. I'm one of them. I'm a big fan of certain authors, David Baldacci and Daniel Silva, and there are people who I love and Michael Connolly, and they write these series of books. Some of them write have two or three or four series. So I think that, and people love that. They love to get lost. To me, what has been come back to me as feedback is that what you're telling us actually happened. And it's almost as if, the whole saying that you couldn't make up that
Couldn't make it
story.
up.
Well,
Yeah.
you couldn't make it up. Well, I didn't have to make it up, because the things that I've been involved with in my career, are what I have tapped into. And I still have, and I know I have mentioned this to you before, and if you had a camera that could pan over, underneath the stairs here in my the second level of our apartment are boxes, and in those boxes are I don't say records because that's unfair. I wouldn't take records out of the DA's office, but they're my summations. I am one of these people who used to write out my summation in order for me to get it in my head. And then when I got to the courtroom, I would put the pad that had the summation written on it off to the side and I'd be off to the races. But writing it helped me digest it, helped me think. Just it
Hmm.
was just my way of doing it. So I have all of those summations in these boxes here. And I when I wrote book one, two, and three a little less than book one and two, I use those as reference material. I would go back to them and because there were parts of some of the crimes that I didn't remember. I did a lot of cases, Tom, and I did a lot of investigations, and I didn't remember everything, and I can't remember everything that I did. So I go back to these summations, and I refresh my memory and read what I said back then, and then I write. And then I can take it and use it in the way that I develop the story. So people are really kind of fascinated by the idea that when I tell them about the story of the young woman on the Williamsburg Bridge, it's always a cringe moment. Oh my God. He went back and he burnt her body, that kind of thing. Think about when the detectives or the bridge workers who
Hmm.
reported for work on Monday morning and found that corpse there and found that body. I mean, think about what they
The
how they
drama,
react.
yeah.
And then the detectives later on, when they went on and think about what their reaction was. I know this sounds cruel. I try to create that same reaction, in writing these books to bring people to that scene, but to cover it with, the kind of fiction veil, so to speak.
I don't think it's cruel. I think it's just it's on, it's the whole, give it to me straight, doc, like don't give me
Yeah.
you can tell my family I'll be fine. Like what's actually happening. I don't think there's anything cruel. I mean, yeah, no, I don't think there's anything cruel about that. And I was just thinking as you were talking, about why do we like that fictional just a little bit of a thread. And I was like, there's gotta be something deeper to it. Because I know a lot of people I know will kind of say the same thing. Like there's something fun about it. It's like augmented nonfiction. And as you were saying about all those summations, and you got them all, and I think about all the shows I've done, and if I really needed to, I could go back and look at them. I've got 2,000 books on my iPhone. Like, well, then what happens for the vast majority of human history when you don't have those things at your fingertips? Okay, so get rid of electronics. Well, you would need something like you have. Okay, but
Yeah.
even okay, so it'd be like, yeah, the written language that's been around. If you look at the last 500 years, or the printing press, the last 500 years, it's like the last 20 are iPhone, the last 500 are printing press. Go back even farther. How about just instead of printing press, you go just writing it down on anything, putting it on
Correct.
physical material. Okay, now instead of 500 years, now you're going, whatever, 5,000 BC to cuneiform. So that's 10 times longer. So the printing press 10 times longer than the iPhone, the written 10 times longer than the printing press. Okay, we'll go back even further then. Modern Homo sapiens, they think are roughly 200 to 250,000. So you 10x it again to where they were still talking to each other, but they hadn't learned how to write it down. Well, how would you pass on life-saving, vital stuff? No, not obviously they don't have scientific research or measurements, but how would you pass on something that is vital to the tribe's survival? About like, you know, you would
How to
probably
kill an
make up.
animal for food.
Well, not only
Yeah.
that, things to avoid.
Yeah,
You go, well,
absolutely.
it's the up north. That's they don't know what winter, but that's the winter god. So, for 3 months out of the year, don't
Yeah.
go up there or you'll die from the winter god. It doesn't matter if it's accurate. It's effective intelligence. Don't go into or avoid don't going too deep into the oceans because,
Right.
whatever the ocean god. And I wonder if that's like a primal thing is because, so how do you pass something down that everyone will remember? They're not going to remember every little detail, but if it's been part of like the oral history in your little tribe for 1,000 generations of like, don't eat those plants or the plant god will kill you. It's like a poisonous mushroom. So it's almost something a little more so if all this stuff went away, all your summations burned, all let's say the grid goes down, total apocalypse, and we're all trying to piece things back together, it wouldn't really be necessary to know all the details about what you did in Brooklyn and New York. But in general, it would probably be beneficial for people to understand what's the one thing they can remember. Well, there's an evil force that does evil things. Okay. And they're not normal human things where, maybe you have a bit too much to drink and you say some mean things, the next day you apologize. Not that. There are some people who are at their core nefarious. This would be something to where if 99% of your day is hunting woolly mammoths and beating lions to death and trying to find firewood, that's small enough that you could remember that. You'd be like, okay, the evil forces.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
kind of what I wonder if that's what it is. I wonder if there's something in like our primal base kind of reptilian brain, the brainstem. I wonder if there's something in there because that's so much because what you're describing, I know I'm rambling, but what you're describing is like that could apply to it doesn't have to apply to it doesn't have to be limited to Brooklyn. You could apply that to the
of
year
course, of
1400 in
course.
China, the evil force. It doesn't.
Readers also want to live vicariously too.
Sure.
I mean, they pick up this book and they read about, let's say, this case, and it's not something they want to be involved in. But when there's a big automobile accident, how everybody gets
Yeah,
out
yeah.
and starts to kind of voyeur, kind of look at the stuff and look at it. That's really, I think, what one of the things that kind of draws people to these books. And the other thing I want to mention is that I talked about summations before. The important thing to me about when I was trying cases as a prosecutor was to bring the jury to the crime scene, you know, and that's why the way I wrote my summations is the way that I use or the not the style and not necessarily the exact content when I write the book is to bring the reader as much as I can to the scene of this particular incident because that will allow the jury to kind of feel for the victim and if necessary to feel for the whole investigation, what the cops were involved with and how were they doing this, that, or the other thing. If you bring them to that location and bring them in and put them into that scenario, then I think that to me was what helped me in terms of being successful at a trial. Because the one thing that's not there, particularly in murder cases, is the victim. The victim is not there.
Yeah.
There is and who is in the courtroom is the person who did it. So, human nature is such that this guy is sitting at a table and the jury knows that if they find him guilty, he's going to go away for the rest of his life. That somehow, sometimes that plays on their minds and they can't necessarily wrap their head around it. And it ends up that they'll either find them not guilty or not vote at all, and it'll be a hung jury. But if you can bring the jury to the scene or put them in the scene of, one of the other scenes that I had in one of the books is this off-duty cop and his girlfriend who were buying some refreshments on July 4th night. He's on a motorcycle and he's going
Yeah.
into the city. To me, that I needed to make sure that those jurors knew what it was like when that guy came up to the cop and said, "I want your bike." And the cop said to him, "I'm a police officer. What are you, crazy?" And what happened next? He just shot him and killed him. So I mean, jurors don't see that every day. Jurors hopefully don't never see it, but they need to kind of quote unquote see it in the courtroom in order to 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 feel what I want them to feel, the horror I want them to feel, so that they will now say the guy deserves to be punished for this. And I try to do that in the books too. I want to make sure that they understand what these fictitious characters have gone through, to get to this point.
Um, yeah, that's one thing that I kind of think about, and I never really knew how to put it into words, but I've thought about it for years, and I know it's not an original thought, but it's like, it's like when somebody drunk driving, let's say they don't even kill someone. Let's say they're just drunk driving, they get caught, and they're just smashed. and you take away their license for 10 years or whatever, and or you do got to go to jail or something. And I know some people's knee-jerk reaction is like, that is, it's a bit harsh. What is the social, what is the social repercussions of that? Can they not go pick up their kid anymore? Are they not working anymore? And like, okay, I get it. You can look at both sides. Well, let's say they did. Let's say they were drunk and they T-boned a car and they, whatever, killed a mom and a kid.
Yeah.
And let's say you do it and say you're my age. Say you do it at 34. Let's say you do it at 24 and they go life in prison. And it's like, okay, they killed two people. They definitely need to go away, but it's like, does that person not eventually change after even 30 years, 40 years, 50? And I bet they do, but what I've always assumed is they probably do change. And I'd say for the most, something like drunk driving, not outright murder, but I would imagine they regret it. However, it's not so much about punishing them. It is, but it is about the people who just lost a mom and a son. You have to prevent that from happening to other innocent people. So even let's say I do it tonight, I get blackout drunk and I kill someone in my car, and they go, you can look at Tommy's podcast. He's a decent enough dude. It's like, does he really need 50 years? What about 10? And it's like Tommy probably regrets it, and Tommy maybe isn't a bad guy. But that deterrence, when other people hear about, like, wait, Tommy from Tommy's, he's a wait, yeah, life in prison until he's dead. They start thinking twice about drinking and driving. And what does that do? Well, that statistically, because it happens so much, is now protecting the innocent. So it's like maybe it's a harsh punishment on Tommy. What's a lot more harsh is to not punish me and then have some other guy lose his wife and kid because some
Without a
asshole was
doubt.
drunk driving.
Without a
So
doubt.
it's that is kind of I want to ask you about that. So about like, so I was like, where am I going with this? But the guy on the bike with getting the fourth, it's like you do have to paint that picture and be like, this is what happened. And even if whatever, I mean, it's kind of hard to defend just shooting him in the head, but like you do have to paint that picture. Be like, this guy deserves to go away. Punishing him doesn't bring the people back. No, it doesn't. But it does add, it's just one more rock in the pile of deterrence of like, yeah,
Yep.
maybe I shouldn't do that. Is there like, I mean, am I just describing the most like elementary judicial thing? Is that like is there a term for that where,
Oh,
hey,
well,
this guy might regret it, but you gotta deter against, the death of future innocence?
no, it's basically what is missing in, let's say, just say New York City now, with
Sure.
the way prosecutors are here, that someone commits a crime. Let's take something as what used to be as simple as shoplifting, which has become a
Sport.
kind of not only a sport, but it's become an epidemic with guys who will just repeatedly, and go into a store and of course there's a victim each time. The guy that owns the store or the woman who owns the store is the victim here. But what happens is if you don't take that shoplifter and punish him as an example, not necessarily to punish him because he did something wrong, like a slap, on the hand, but as an example of why I'm sorry, to other people, so that if you are going down or walking into a drugstore and you see all of this stuff around you, the deterrence is that guy who just got X amount of time in jail, hopefully is a deterrent, and I'm not going to take, the soap and the toothpaste and all the rest of the stuff. Our criminal justice system in New York City has gone awry the way that I would never thought it would be, because I worked in it for so long, and I worked in it at a time when the crime rate was so high that and the murder rate was so high that there were we thought that maybe this would never get fixed. And you know how we in Brooklyn fixed it? We had people go to jail for the crimes that they did. And the crime rate went down for two reasons. One, as a deterrent, but also because we put the bad guys away and they weren't out on the street to commit the crimes. So when you so to get back to what you were talking about, yes, of course there is a deterrent factor in this stuff, and you hope that, I'm not talking about psychopaths now, because psychopaths are not going to be deterred.
Yeah, you try to lock
But
them.
but if you are a guy, thinking that, you are a bunch of people, and you say, let's go down to the store and, clean out this guy's store because no one's going to do anything to us. If they catch us, so what? We're going to walk out of the court, out of the police precinct, and maybe never even go back to court. Well, they're going to go and do it. But if they knew that they're going to get caught, when they get caught, they're going to be put in jail for a period of time, then you would hope that that would be the deterrent that you're talking about. I again, I can't say that, that it's the deterrent for people like serial killers or
No, they
or
gotta
or
be.
psychopaths. You
Yeah.
can't. But for the average person, it does work. Look, in the books, you've read them, so you know that there are times when the Monsignor, who is the main character's best friend, and who got Michael Gioka, the main character, involved with the battle against the devil. There are times when he gets a call from somebody who Michael has put in jail as a result of what the devil has instigated him to do. And he's looking for forgiveness as well as cleansing in terms of getting the demon away from him. And that, to me, it was an important part. I needed to write that because I didn't want everyone to believe that every time somebody did something, they were such a psychopath or a sociopath that they would never learn a lesson. The point I was making is that the devil made them do it for this particular time, and they learned something from it and wanted the priest to hear their confession and also to cleanse them of the demon. So it's very important, in my opinion, and based on my experience, that if you don't treat somebody as poorly as they treated the victim, and when I say poorly, I mean sending him to jail, then that person may very well come back out and do it again. Or or someone who's watching the case may say, you know what, I can get away with it. Think about this, the
Yeah.
murder in Idaho with this guy Kohlberger. He kills four students who are part of his where he goes to school, right? He goes into their house and he massacres four of them. If that guy didn't go to jail, and he's going to jail, he saved himself the death penalty by taking a plea. But if he didn't go to jail for the rest of his life or wasn't sentenced to jail for the rest of his life, you can't tell me that there's not some nut out there or some guy out there who wants to maybe just have some fun in his or her mindset and go ahead and do something very similar. I think that particularly in those kinds of horrific crimes, learning a lesson or teaching a lesson is as part of what we do as prosecutors as the simple conviction for trying the case in the courtroom.
Mm.
And it's something that I try to make sure that I put into my stories as well, so that there is a reason, there is a way you can redeem yourself, but you need to make sure that you pay the price first, and then you can redeem yourself. And so it's I unfortunately, we who live here in New York City are living through this. And or if you live in Chicago, same thing.
Hmm.
Or you live, in some other blue city. People think that instead of incarceration, it should be, excarceration, so to speak, if there is such a word, where they say that incarceration does no good. It's crazy, crazy. Think about this one last thing. I'm
Yeah,
a
you go. No, you're
father. I
good.
have two sons. What would you do if your son did something horrific just around the house? Let's say was playing with matches. Okay, he was a kid. He's 10 years old. He sees matches around. He starts. Okay, and the penalty is, oh, you know what? Give me the matches. Don't ever do that again. I don't think that's going to teach him a lesson. But if he was, let's say you took away something from him, or you confined him to his room for, and took his TV away, or maybe his iPad away, or some other punishment, he's going to think twice when it's something very important. He's going to think twice if he sees another book of matches on a table in the, on the kitchen table. He's not going to do it. That's as simple as it gets, in my opinion, as simple as it gets. You don't simply say, don't ever do that again, which is what the prosecutors in New York City are now saying. Don't ever do that again, or don't do that again. Or maybe they don't even say that. They just say, you know what? He's a poor guy like this AOC. She says, oh, people shoplift because they're hungry. Really? Well, I can tell you that when people shoplifted in Manhattan at the height of the shoplifting situation here, what they would do is they'd clean out a Rite Aid drugstore, go out on the street and down the block, open up a table and put all of the stuff that they stole on the table for sale.
Yeah, it's homeless shelters and church affiliated places. The one thing they never refuse you is food. If you go in asking for methadone or some might give it to you, some will not. If you go in asking for clean clothes, even that they're a little more hesitant because they don't know if you're going to sell them. You can almost always get food in any shop. They will give you a can of soup or an
Without a doubt.
apple. Yeah,
Without
and
a doubt.
it's so that's bullshit. But
So that
like,
it was a total bullshit.
and
Same thing goes for the riots that we've had in Columbia University and Harvard. These whole anti-Palestine or anti-Israel
yeah,
riots. Something needed to be done because it was going to be repeated again this year after all they did last year. They took over buildings. They did all kinds of stuff. If they were not stopped, that would have happened every single semester. And you needed to stop it. And Columbia needed to be taught a lesson, just like the kids did. They needed to be taught a lesson. And taking away, let's say, federal funds was the lesson that they learned. And now what happened? Well, they suspended all of those kids. They banned those people. That's the kind of thing. It's always a matter of, take away. You have to teach them that you can't get away with bad activity. You just can't. Bad behavior, I should say.
yeah, and it's not even outright like a violation of free speech. It's like in college campuses. Every once in a while, you hear about a pledge dying from alcohol poisoning, and even at some of these campuses that are University of Alabama, University of Georgia, South Carolina, where fraternities are like. I mean, it's bread and butter. They are part
Yeah,
of the thing in
yeah,
the Deep
yeah.
South. They'll outright kick them off. It doesn't matter how many wealthy donors used to be in that fraternity. If a student die, and you could say that's extreme, but you know what? They don't kick. Extreme would be kicking everyone off. They don't kick off the other fraternities. I knew so many fraternities, myself included, who were total degenerate shitheads, but we didn't break any laws. You kept it all in your house, and no one died. So you know what? The school will be like, whatever. Some because fraternities are an attraction for young guys applying to schools. It's not even like they're being unfair. It's just like, hey, that 19-year-old's dead. Like something has to happen because if it doesn't, it'll keep pushing. And it's also, good people, good honorable people who still have other flaws, me, you, whoever. They don't often don't need to be taught extreme. Like I don't need to be shown that if I go down to the street here in Portland and shoot somebody and kill them, I'm going to jail. I know that.
Of course you
And
do.
yeah, and most people do. Well, then, so why do you need the
But
deterrence?
let
Because
me
there are,
interrupt for one. Let me
yeah, yeah,
interrupt for one
yeah, yeah.
second. What if the situation is that you do that and you know that you're not going to go to jail?
Well, and so,
That's the situation that
okay, so
we
let's say,
have
let's
here
say
in
right now
these.
they don't prosecute it in Portland. Let's just say there's some weird legal twilight zone here. I am still not going to because I know that's wrong. And most people would still go, it doesn't
Yes.
really matter if they're, hey, I'm not going to go kill them. What are you talking about? So they don't need to be policed. Most people don't need to be policed. However, there are people who will simply, it's like my late grandparents had this big fat golden lab named Honey. And my grandpa, we called him Beeps, would always say, I swear to God, if he wouldn't say that, he's extremely Christian. He would say, I swear, if I put down a 50-pound bag of dog food, that dog would eat itself to death. He
Correct.
doesn't stop. And it didn't, most dogs will take scraps, but if you hand them like, green beans, they kind of like poo-poo it. This dog, no. And you give it a whole just, and he used to say like that dog will kill itself, and most dogs won't. Most dogs, even though they're little gluttons, they'll still stop when they
Stop.
gotta go
Yes.
throw up. But he was like, I think this dog would actually like I think its stomach would rip open and like, and there are people that you just have to put down the law on them. And it sucks because for most people you interact with, they don't need that boundary. But there's a fat comedian I love named Ray Kump. And I remember listening to him in like 2017, right when Trump got in office and he did that whole missile barrage on Syria. And this comedian's a, far leftist guy. But even he was like, you can't not respond to, I think at the time, was it Assad? He think he gassed some of his civilians or something. It was like spring 2017.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, I'm not saying we go in and start another Iraq war. He's like, so people are saying like, well, we shouldn't do that. Well, then why do anything if we're not going to do it? What is bombing? Trump bombed like one small military airport, like destroyed the runway and some hangars. And this comedian, who again is not a Trump guy, he was like, you have to do something. It doesn't matter
Of
how,
course.
whatever it is. He was like, you can't not do that. Most people in the world, you don't need to do it to because they're not going to gas their own people. But there are people who only respond to force. And it always makes me think of the quote that, two quotes that power is not given, it's taken. And what you tolerate is what will continue. And the
Correct.
vast majority of people, you don't
Correct.
it's the what you tolerate. I don't have to apply that to you. It's not like, well, Mike's just he's gonna talk for 10 hours until like, no, he's not. No one does. There are some guests I've had on who will continue to like one of my rules is like you can't talk shit about other guests if they're not here to defend themselves. Not because I care about them, but because it looks bad on me and my business, which is how
Oh, of
it.
course. And it's a smart rule.
There's only ever one guy, and one time he did it, and he's like 20 years older than me. He's not a young stupid idiot. He did it a second time. He did it a third time. I finally realized like he will not stop, and he was one of the few guys that was like, you can no longer come on the show, which is a
Yeah.
shame because I do kind of like you, but I don't have to do that to most people. However, that 1% of 1%, if you don't do it, they will just keep doing it. The
Correct.
the dog will eat the entire bag of food, and then Honey would probably eat the bag, and then she would probably start eating the silverware. And it's
Yep.
like, well, at a certain point, you have to put a wall down. And that's not even a great example because that's an animal that's only harming itself. Imagine if instead of it, it would eat itself to death. What if it ate so much that it magically became rabid and started biting kids? That's a better example. Is you have to establish that. And like, yeah, you do
There's
have to do
nothing,
that.
there's nothing wrong, Tom, in situations to mete out punishment in addition to deterrence. There's nothing wrong with that. You
Sure.
pay the consequences for being a social or whatever the situation is. I don't see anything wrong with that. And deterrence is, in my opinion, the main would be the main point about sending someone to jail. But punishment is there too. Someone deserves
Oh yeah.
to to be punished because of what they have done to another human being. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
No.
And you look at, if sometimes I read stuff about, particularly, and I keep going back to the shoplifting stuff because it has become in certain situations an epidemic here. It got to the point where if my wife and I would go to our local Rite Aid drugstore, you would have to press a button and an alarm, not an alarm, but a buzzer would go off to let the people who are running the store know that you're needed at a particular part of the store so that they could unlock
Yeah.
the soap and the deodorant. I mean,
Yeah.
and what happened, it got even worse, is that people just stopped going.
Well,
They
yeah.
stopped going.
Let's look this.
And Rite Aid is now out of business.
Yeah.
They're out of business. So that is, that's the long-term effect of allowing crimes or allowing antisocial behavior to go unchecked. And going back to the books for a second,
Yeah.
I truly believe that I believe in Satan and I believe in the devil, and I believe that he is, or she, whoever it might be, at work in this world. There's
Of
no
course.
doubt about it, in my opinion. So so you just, I don't know, I just keep going back to the idea that if I owned a grocery store and I had someone come in every day to steal all of my, let's say, eggs that I bought or all of my bread and put them in a basket and then go down the block and try to sell them on the street for less than what I would sell them for in the store, there comes a point where I can't operate any longer. So what has happened is the government has allowed criminals to go run roughshod over people who are honest tax-paying citizens, and you're driving those honest tax-paying citizens into either bankruptcy or completely out of where they live. You got to move because you can't live there any longer. So
And and
it's
then well, I got to jump on a phone call and I let it get away from me. But I was gonna
you
say,
got it.
well, one, you could say, well, what, how violent is stealing an egg? Sure, in a vacuum, it's not. But what if that's somebody's business and that's also how they send their kid to school, and that's
It
also how they make
represents
sure that their wife can, she doesn't have to work, she can stay home and raise the
exactly,
kids. Well, and so now
exactly
reword it. Hey, this guy didn't steal an egg. This guy stole my ch child's tuition.
tuition.
Well, now you start looking at it and you go, well, fuck that guy. And then
Yeah,
the other thing is it will eventually, it always does, snap back. And you're either going to have vigilante guerrillas who just start going shooting back, or you're going to have what you're seeing now. And a lot of people don't like it. I frankly don't care. But like, yeah, this is why the reason Trump sent the Marines to the southern border
without a doubt.
is
What in
because
Los
no one's
Angeles?
doing anything. It's
Correct.
this is the inevitable pushback. So it's like if you want it to be peaceful and formal and progressive, keep the basic simple laws. But if you don't, it's like the quote, if you watch the pennies, the dollars take care of themselves. It's like do simple things. Get 8 hours of sleep, stay hydrated, do 10 minutes of
I
exercise a
agree.
day. And if
I
you
agree.
don't, well, don't be surprised when 20 years down the road, all of a sudden you have a $300,000 medical bill because your liver has failed and you haven't done cardio in 5 decades.
Yep.
It's like it does eventually all come back and with interest. So if you don't like what's happening now with ICE raids, hey, don't let in 30 million fucking people.
Yep.
It's, um,
Of course, there were people who came into this country legally and
no,
had to
they're
wait
the,
and do all
yeah.
stuff. Those people are the people who look at this and say, "What am I, an idiot?
What am I, chump?
I did the right thing, and now there's 10 million people come in on my ass with not having to without having to do what I did." I mean,
And
that's
I
that's
and I look at my two and we'll wrap it up. I look at yeah, no, I look at two of my friends, Ivan Georgiev and Prince Blagosh. Ivan's from Bulgaria, Prince is from Kosovo. I met them both in like 2011, 2012 doing bar security. They're over here on green cards doing just summer work. They both live here now. They're full US citizens. Ivan is a gold medalist bodybuilder in Las Vegas. And Prince came here, learned English, became a physical therapist, and then bought a shipping company. And he's younger than me, and he just opened an Italian restaurant in Austin. So
there you go.
not only are these people who look at the illegals and go, "What am I, chump?" These are also people that are contributing more
Yep,
than I am, and I'm
yep,
from here. So it does snap back. But we gotta wrap it up. I'm an idiot and
yep.
let this run over. Guys, please go into the description. You can find the links to all of Mike's books. Mike, I will send you this link. It'll be up tomorrow, I believe. And like I said, ping me
Thank you.
and we'll
Can I
schedule
just
the
say
next one.
one
Yes,
very
sir.
quick
Yeah, yeah,
thing?
yeah, yeah.
The publisher of the Fallen Angel books has now released Fallen Angel 1 as a podcast. Every Friday from not at 9 a.m. a new episode drops. So it's basically you'll listen to my melodious voice reading the book, and it's only two chapters so far have been played, so your audience can go back and read it. And it's on. You can find it everywhere. You can find it on Apple and Spotify and all kinds of places. So
Text me or email me that link and I will add it to the description.
I will do that. I will do that.
All right, brother.
All
Mike,
right.
as always,
Thank
good
you,
catching
Tom.
up with you, man. Yes, sir. Always a pleasure talking with you. Till next time.